let us talk about what went down over the weekend. This was a much quieter weekend than the previous one, but still a lot going on. Collision on Saturday night. This is week number 5, and the number will be out on Tuesday. This is going to be one of the more interesting ones because, as we had mentioned, going into this show, the main thing that was promoted was a Trios Championship match that I would say coming out of the show was outside of the Billy Gunn deal at the end, I don't think anything memorable coming out of that very quick match. And so CM Punk does wrestle, but it's an impromptu one that is set up in the opening segment. Very un-AEW-like when it comes to setting up a match that would be delivered later that evening. But you ended up getting a 28-minute main event with CM Punk and Darby Allin against the team of Ricky Starks and Christian Cage, which was quite the pairings for Collision on Saturday. But more interesting was the reaction to CM Punk throughout the night from this crowd in Newark, New Jersey. It was a fine crowd that they had. They did not fill the Prudential Center, but they were there. They might not have filled the venue, but they were there for fill. Some were and some weren't. It was a mixture of reactions, not all positive, not all negative. They were very loud, and that was a positive.
Yeah. It really continues the trend of, I think I would suggest somewhat unpredictable reactions to CM Punk. Some weeks you kind of get a neutral, pro Punk crowd, and other weeks you get a pretty vocal anti CM Punk and co type of reaction. And we saw it.
FTR got the shrapnel from their association on this show.
I think having FTR paired up against, MJF and Adam Cole probably didn't do them any favors either. So really at this point, we continue to study Collision and to see how AEW is handling those potential CM Punk negative reactions. On the one hand, of course, I think, this is nothing new. Like in professional wrestling, it's happened many times in the past, and you either run with it or you kind of grind up against the audience and continue to maybe try to turn them, which I don't think is going to be happening. But in the end, you ask the question, is this negative for your product or is it beneficial?
It's not, as long as you are drawing and there's interest for it. I would say Collision, I wouldn't call it this runaway hit, nor is it a failure. It's, I think the 0.2 is sort of the barometer, I would say, for Collision. I think if you're falling under that, it's going to be disappointing. And anything above a 0.20, you're probably pretty happy with realistic expectations. Like week 1, you could hit that 0.3, but I think the sweet spot is going to be 0.2. And as much as this weekend's card is somewhat loaded up, you could say, with the tag title match, they've thrown a ladder match. I'm more interested to see what kind of battle plan do they have to set up the next week when they are up against SummerSlam. This will be their first head-to-head battle with a WWE pay-per-view, and a major one. This is going to be a big SummerSlam. And what kind of card does Collision combat that with? And I would think that you would want a pretty strong lineup known by the time you turn off this Saturday show.
I think it's a really tough task to ask maybe even like the most diehard of AEW fans to not be curious to watch a SummerSlam live. I would think that week at best they can hope for some maybe strong DVR numbers. And it's no reason to throw in the towel. I mean, I think it's important to get people to just continue to even make Collision a priority, even on tape delay. So I hope they announce something strong.
So in terms of the handling of Punk right now, like, are you sensing, like, I don't think this is one where it's so much like Punk is just going with the flow of it. Like, it does feel as though they are trying to direct fans to cheer this guy, which with the exception of the line about the New Jersey Devils, this was all babyface material from Punk. And it felt
like an ad lib.
It certainly did, because it went against everything else during that segment that was designed to babyface Punk, and right up until like putting Christian here in the middle of things on top
and pairing him with Darby, of course, and getting Darby to give New Jersey his approval,
which felt very
forced.
Like, Darby felt very insincere in that moment, and I think he knew that. Like, this is not something my character should be doing, but is to try and take a bullet here. So the FTR one was more interesting because I think that this promo as well was designed to be a babyface run, right down to Dax telling like this childhood story. and it just didn't seem to quite resonate with the audience. But I think the miscalculation was their belief, and this exists. It absolutely exists among some of the fans that have been negative towards the more comedic based skits on Dynamite, specifically Adam Cole and MJF. I don't think what they realized is that there is a larger number that are loving this stuff. They are also, the numbers are bearing out. They're popular segments. And it seemed like this audience was not going to be booing FTR, kind of denigrating this, like, the dance off on Wednesday, or these things that I think enough of the crowd, whether they were just against FTR, but I think a portion of it too was they like these segments, and it's not this kind of sports entertainment paintbrush that you are trying to get across. Like, this is the antithesis of us, and these are our hard, true wrestling fans here that are going to back us up in this promo.
Well, I mean, I don't know if they should have really been surprised by this reaction, because, I mean, these MJF Cole segments are very much babyface segments. I mean, he plays a very insincere babyface, but bottom line is the team is incredibly over. And I think FTR and Dax specifically should have maybe prepared for this type of reaction a little bit better than it felt like he was reacting to.
I think they felt they were going to have this crowd in the palm of their hands, and they were just going to, whether they're Cole and MJF fans or not, in this moment where they are here live in the ring, it would be a pro FTR crowd, and they had to fight this audience. And I think it does set the table that this audience will lean. I mean, FTR will be the heels in this match in Hartford.
I definitely think so.
Like, how can you not, expecting like the double clothesline chant and all the stuff that Cole and MJF do? I just don't think it's going to be one where, like, if the audience is choosing, like, that is going to be their focus.
It could be a double babyface type of reaction. I don't necessarily see them booing FTR actively, but I also don't see them booing MJF and Cole either. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for that reason. As far as, like, CM Punk goes, clearly they're building towards CM Punk versus MJF, with the little teases that Punk continues to throw in there with the bag and everything. And perhaps it's for that reason that they want to be so stubborn about keeping CM Punk a babyface, especially if the, buildup is towards a Chicago or even an All In. It makes you wonder at this point why they continue to be so stubborn about keeping Punk a babyface.
I don't care what your plans are. To me, at this point, between the Cole stuff, like, to me, MJF should be coming out of this as the babyface. I really believe it's time for that. I think that there is going to be enough that if this ultimately is just MJF turning on Cole, like, it'll be fine in the moment, but it does feel as though we're just playing the greatest hits with MJF. Like, we have been down this road many times before, whereas the babyface turn, the audience has been ready for this for almost a year. And I feel in this instance, you could come out of this with MJF as the big babyface that they have been striving to have, that truly top end babyface that you can build this company around. And you have the perfect heel in Punk, but it just seems at the moment they're in opposite roles.
Almost seems like, pretty perfect of a situation for a double turn. But I mean, it depends on when those two might eventually be meeting, because you have to get through this Cole program first with MJF.
So there you go. That is a Collision, and you can get a whole rundown of the show from Kate and John Cena from Saturday night, taking your calls and going through a Collision. We also did a show covering Ring of Honor's Death Before Dishonor, a really great pay-per-view if you went out of your way to purchase the show on Friday. All of our thoughts there.